So great story from David Sirota, as usual, at IBT, and that's the International Business Times, and he talks about whether the particular congressman having accounts to certain banks influenced the bailouts. Now, it's not his conclusions. He's quoting here researchers. So let me give it to you, and we'll find out. We'll find out together if it affected them or not. Amid the 2008 financial crisis, congressional lawmakers passed a bill providing $700 billion of direct support to major banks. In a new study, researchers from the London Business School and Tillburg University cross-referenced lawmakers' votes for that controversial legislation with those lawmakers' financial holdings. Their conclusion, members of the U.S. House of Representatives with a personal stake in bank stocks were far more likely to support the legislation than those who were not invested in those institutions. So now they're researchers, so obviously they're going to try to look at this from all angles, and they're like, okay, is it a partisan issue? Is it that the Republicans had more bank stock? So now, I don't know the degree to which Republicans had more bank stock, but what they found was that, no, if you're a Democrat or a Republican with bank stock, you're more likely to vote for the bailouts. If you're a Democrat or Republican without bank stock, you are more likely to vote against the bailouts. And then they control for some other factors too. So let me give you more. We estimate, this is from the Institute for New Economic Thinking, this is quoting the study, we estimate that the representatives are almost 60% more likely to vote in favor of government intervention when the financial crisis affected their personal wealth. Okay? So it's not a black and white world. It's not like, oh, I'm deeply corrupt, I have bank stocks, I would like to go. It's 100% of the time. No. But is this statistically significant? Yes! 60% more likely to vote in favor. That is very significant. Okay, they continue. For instance, they found that while lawmakers currently invested in bank stocks were more likely to vote for government intervention to help Wall Street, those that had only previously owned such stocks showed no special proclivity to cast such votes. This, the researchers said, proved the motive of self-interest. So let me explain that just a tiny bit better. Because what they wanted to test for was, maybe the guy's a believer in banks. And he thinks, so that makes sense. That's why I owned bank stock in the past. And I think that the banks are an important part of the economy. So that goes to ideology. But they realized, no, once they looked at the results, it wasn't about ideology. If you owned bank stock before, but you didn't own it anymore, so no skin off your ass, it doesn't affect you financially, you'd vote against the bailouts, okay, on average, based on these results. But if you own the bank stocks now, you're like, well, my money's in those banks. I'm voting for the bailouts. And, you know, it's a funny thing is, like, this seems controversial to the establishment, but we're humans. It's the most obvious thing in the world. If your money's involved, it's not necessarily going to be the only factor that you consider, but is it a little bit of a pull towards that side? Of course, it's human nature.
One thing to remember, too, is that members of Congress don't have to put their investments in blind trusts because they are elected. So it's a lot more hands-on. Many of them actually do put them in blind trusts, but unlike presidents, vice presidents, presidential candidates, they don't have to put them in blind trusts. And I think, so it sort of adds a little fuel to this. If you think this is a fire, it adds a little fuel to it because it kind of makes you think that, oh, there is actually, their opinion matters because their interests are known to them, and that does matter.
What do you guys have against making a profit?
Well,
everybody wins. The banks get saved, they make a little money.
Okay, but here's the other side. I mean, I know what you're saying, but you can also vote for the bank bailout, have investments in banks, and still think it's the right thing to do, independent of your investment in the bank. Because most people in Congress, in the House of Representatives, most are not getting rich at the moment, the second they're in their House seats. So,
well, I'm going to give you the numbers on that, so yeah. we'll see to what degree they were influenced.
It's more an investment in the future than it is in the moment.
Right. So of course Jimmy's kidding, right? So he's of course your financial interests make a difference. And Michael's point is that, again, like I said, it's not the only factor. And how rich are they getting? Well, we'll get to that in a second. So just one more about the data, and then I'll give you the numbers on how rich Congress is and Trump too. The researchers also conducted similar data tests that cross-referenced lawmakers' bailout votes with their party, their general political ideology, their source of campaign cash, and their voters' public policy preferences. In each case, they found, quote, a sizable effect of being an investor in the financial sector for politicians who who are very similar in terms of their ideology and their constituency and special interests. So yes, the fact that they had stock in those banks affected them despite all of the other factors, okay? And so how rich are they? In the current Congress, the median lawmaker's net worth is more than $1 million, and 271 out of 533 members are millionaires. Actually, given how corrupt our system has become, I'm surprised that number is that low.
Well, I'd also like to know what it is if you take the Senate out of that. They said 533 members. If you take the Senate out of it, I think it goes down a lot on average.
And what does millionaire mean? Does that mean they own property worth $1 million, or
That they're worth $1 million,
that's
generally
not-
speaking. You know.
that's you're including property, then that's not a lot of.
Yeah, it's to
I
give
don't
you
think
context.
it's liquidity. I don't think. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I think Biden was the poorest senator when he was in the Senate. Obviously, he hasn't been there in a while since he was vice president. Bernie Sanders, I think, is the poorest senator now, and I believe that people were hassling him because he had saved up $500,000 throughout his entire career, right? And so that's the poorest senator, and still a lot better than the rest of us. You know, most of the rest of us certainly.
Still shops at Costco, junk.
Yeah, he does, and it's not a trick like Mitt Romney. Like, oh, the other day I bought 3 shirts from Costco and I wore them. Can you believe it?
They'll go perfect with my handmade Italian, every fucking thing else I own.
So, but still, they're on average millionaires, and so the bank stocks. Is it that they consciously think, hey, if I don't do the bailouts, I'm going to lose $1,700, $17,000, $170,000, depending on what their situation is? Maybe some of them, but I tend to think that it's more subconscious. That dude, I know from personal experience, everybody, we try super hard not to get affected by the money here because we're conscious of it. We make an effort not to be influenced by it. It's part of the whole point of the show, etc. But every human being has a pull towards money and towards your own self-interest. It's in our DNA. So,
But it goes further, Cenk, with them because it's a little different. Because a lot of members of Congress. I know a lot of members of Congress. I've known a number of them. They are motivated. Their currency is not dollars immediately. It's votes. But it becomes dollars when it becomes getting money to get the votes, to run those campaigns, to invest in their candidacy. So that's where, so it's not just my own self-interest because I'm going to line my wallet and these bank stocks are going to remain stable and I'm going to, get a dividend of $1.14 on every share. It's not that at all. It's if I do this for the banks, where the money is, they're going to give me money to run my next election. So that's the currency that they're dealing with. So it helps them twofold, but certainly that's what they think. We think dollars, they think votes.
Yeah, and I think that both things might be a factor. My personal bank account plus how much I'm going to get in donations. Certainly one thing we could do about one of those, which is stop the private financing of elections. So it's an easy fix. But now, if you think it was a problem in Congress, wait till you get a load of the Trump cabinet. So Sirota writes, meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump has appointed a cabinet of corporate moguls, CEOs, and wealthy political figures whose combined net worth is more than $14 billion. And of course, the cabinet is much, much, much smaller than Congress. And nonetheless, they still have $14 billion of net worth. Any chance that the Trump cabinet is going to lean towards the green? That they're going to care what the financial ramifications of their decisions are going to be to their own pocketbook? That's part of the reason he picked them. Rex Tillerson has a $500 billion deal with Russia that Obama's sanctions stopped. The minute they get into office, they're going to end those sanctions, and ExxonMobil is going to get a $500 billion contract. You look at what the study shows. You think these guys won't get influenced in the same way that the Congress guys got influenced when there's so much more money on the line? Let alone Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross and all the other people who are in the financial industry, worked at Goldman Sachs, or were hedge fund guys, worked for Soros's wealth fund, worked for the Rothschilds. All the things that the Republicans or crazy conservatives said they were against, right? And here they are. And my guess is they're going to be significantly influenced by the money.
The next appointee could be worth $250 million and bring down the average net worth of the entire cabinet.
Okay, isn't that amazing? So if you were worried about systemic corruption before, wait till you get a load of Trump's cabinet. Buckle up. Fix the media. Be the media. Come join us. tytnetwork.com/join.